And now, podcasting from the sun-scorched desert Southwest, weighing in at a combined total of 340 pounds, Brad Winchester, Tyler McDowell-Blanken, R. Gimmick Infringement.
Welcome, everybody, to the Gimmick Infringement Podcast. I am Brad Winchester, and with me is my tag team partner, Tyler McDowell-Blanken. Tyler, it's Sunday. I was out in the yard today, working, sweating. How are you doing today?
I am doing so well, Brad. It's always great to see you. Man, I'm glad you got that early morning time in. Yesterday, I actually was out and about pretty early as well. And it's the perfect time of year in Arizona to be out early, to get all the errands done or the yard work done, because it's actually not too bad right now.
70s, yeah.
Wet is guaranteed, no doubt. But compared to 2 weeks ago or a month ago, I think there's quite the contrast. So how are you doing, man? It's great to see you, as always.
I'm doing well. We got Ding Dong ditched last night at 10:30 p.m.
I saw.
So I sent a video
jobber
to my to our school resource officer.
No, you didn't.
I absolutely did not. I also put it on social media.
Yes, you did.
I don't know if this kid's a student. I hope it is a student.
Has to be.
I want the fear of God put into this child. You don't do that at 10:30 p.m. You just don't. My wife, Jess, was scared. Freya was scared. The dog was scared. Like, not okay. You do it at 3 p.m. It's annoying, but kids are going to kid. 10:30 at night, that's not okay. So that happened. But while I was outside, I was listening to JR's podcast. I can't remember what Grillin' JR, I think is what it's called. I can't remember.
Very appropriate, on brand.
Of course. And they had a CM Punk megasode. We have not talked about this. I wanted to wait until now. And it was a bit about Tony Atlas. Tony Atlas being a coach in OVW, I believe. Around the time that Punk won the ECW belt in the WWE ECW, he won the ECW belt, and he was on TV and realized that one of the guys was going to go to TNA or Impact on a contract, and realized, well, this is the last time that we can wrestle each other. So he's going to go do work. He didn't need to be, he was just there. And he decided to do a match, and they had like a big giant tag match or fatal 4-way or a 4-on-4 or whatever it was, just a bunch of people in the ring screwing around, having a blast with each other. And he was in the back getting his wrists taped up and all that stuff to put the X's on it. That's his thing. And Tony Atlas came in, and they had a bit of a confrontation later in the night because he was like, it looks like your arms are broken. He's like, well, it's just sort of the thing I do. And it's like, well, it looks like your arms are broken. Okay. Then he kind of left. And after the show, he was in a meeting, and Punk wasn't really paying any attention because he's just kind of there. He wasn't on his phone or anything, but he's getting texts from people in the meeting where Atlas was saying, I had a pretty good night tonight, but one of you was an asshole. And he kept saying it, but he was staring daggers into CM Punk. And eventually Punk said, are you talking to me? And he's like, yeah. And Punk just went, well, fuck you. And that was how the meeting started, right? But the point was, he wasn't taking the advice. Tony Atlas was really upset that he wasn't taking his, you shouldn't be wearing those things advice. It doesn't look good. It's not going to get you on TV, is what he said in the meeting. And he's like, I'm already on TV. And Tony Atlas had no idea who he was. But the point there was that Punk was like, I'm not going to listen to this guy's advice. It's already, I'm already here. So I found that really interesting because what he was doing was working, and he didn't need to take Tony Atlas's advice. Right. So why does he have a problem with Hangman Page not taking his advice? So the script has sort of been flipped. Hangman's like, well, I'm just doing what I do. I like to learn by trial and error. I found that really interesting, Tyler.
I bet you did. And CM Punk is arguably most well known for the infamous pipe bomb promo. So if Hangman, took some liberties to sell a pay-per-view match. Isn't that exactly what Punk did? I know Punk's intentions were maybe not just selling a pay-per-view Money in the Bank match against John Cena. He wanted to, air some grievances he had toward Vince.
Well,
but
the
Pipe
problem,
Bomb and Hangman shooting on
well, the problem
Punk,
with that, I was going to
is that not the
say,
same thing?
no, because the pipe bomb was approved.
Hmm.
We found out now that, like, we now know that it was a giant work. So
Right. And Paige
based on real things, but he had the approval to do it. He knew the mic was going to get cut off.
Right.
All of that stuff. Everybody was in on that except for the audience.
Right.
So the
in
pipe bomb
kayfabe,
really,
it's the same thing. But
in kayfabe, it's
Yeah.
the same thing. But for Hangman, I really think it caught him off guard. Like MJF saying the Colt Cabana stuff a couple of weeks prior, or a couple of months prior, no problem. He says something Colt Cabana related, kind of, but never saying his name. Not okay. Him saying he doesn't really take advice, not okay. That's a problem, not taking advice. But it's like, but you were talking about this story in an interview. It was the one of those megasodes that JR and Conrad put out every once in a while when I think they need a break, and they just take a compilation of all the stuff that they've done talking about it. I listened to the Sting megasode, which was 4 hours long. I listened to the Punk episode. I'm about halfway through, and it's like all of their talk about that person throughout all the episodes they've talked to or had him on, including the Ross Report interviews that JR did with Sting. But there was like a kind of a CM Punk deep dive when he returned, and that was what some of this was the WWE post interview where he was talking about the thing with Tony Atlas. But he's the one in the interview that said, "Yeah, I'm not gonna, like, I don't really need to listen to this. I'm already on TV. It's working for me." I don't know why that wouldn't be the same for somebody like Hangman Page, when at that time, because in his infamous Brawl Out promo, he said that Hangman, who hasn't done anything in the business. Well, at the time, Punk had only won the ECW title. Hangman was world champion. So I don't really know why the disconnect was there, or if doing something in the business meant being WWE champion, which he wasn't at the time, or being in the WWE, which he was and wasn't happy already. So I don't really know what the disconnect is there, but I found it really interesting that he is probably unaware that he is now that guy. He is now Tony Atlas in this scenario.
Mm-hmm.
All that being said, I hope it all gets sorted out. CM Punk being on the screen is probably better than not being on the screen, but I think there's a lot of money to be made, but I don't know if him going into the locker room and immediately getting jumped by 9 dudes is going to work out well either.
No, and you can just already print the money in an eventual Elite versus CM Punk and FTR trios match.
Yes.
But it just would seem, from our vantage point, reading reports and trying to sift through, what's perhaps accurate and what's not, it would seem that there were some really deep-seated issues here. And Punk totally believing that the Elite and company, were spreading rumors about him being the reason Colt Cabana was removed from his position. It just, I don't know, man. We've not had a story like this in quite some time that really blurred the lines between reality and entertainment. So I don't know, like you said, as an AEW fan and just a wrestling fan, we know that having Punk and the Elite on our screens is better for us, for business.
Yep.
It'll be fascinating to see if Punk returns to the company, and if he does, what that looks like. I don't know that he is going to be in world title contention anymore. It seems like we've kind of been there and done that. But also, if he's the biggest draw on the men's side or on any side in the company, it's kind of hard to not put him in a very prominent role. So I don't know, Brad. I just want to close by saying I give you full credit. I think you were the first reporter to break the news on this. Literally, you told me while the press conference was going on, you said, "Bro, are you seeing this right now? Do you see what's happening? Punk's at the mic and he's just shooting on dudes." I said, "No, let me pull that up." And from that moment till now, I mean, that's been the talk of the wrestling community. So I know we have a lot to get to, but like you, I'm fascinated to see how this all plays out. I just want these dudes back on our screen and not beefing with each other and not throwing chairs and dudes' faces and stuff. That seems unnecessary.
Yeah, and you know what? If they do it in the back and we never hear about it, which I'm sure has happened and does happen
Of
all the
course,
time,
sure.
it was. I don't know, the Punk side of things was such a bad look for the company
Oh, terrible.
to do it in a press conference. If all the other
Yes.
stuff still would have happened in the back, nobody. I doubt there'd probably be suspensions, but it wouldn't be like this. It's because all of us knew about why it happened, and it was so public that's why now we have all of this.
Right.
So,
And to your point,
um,
if you're
yeah,
burying, and I know obviously Punk on a human level seems very hurt by his assertion that these
sure,
guys were spreading these rumors. So there's multiple sides to every story, but to bury Hangman Page and company is thus burying the company like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
That's just not good for business. And TK Tony Khan being next to him and sort of wincing at many of Punk's comments, obviously, but Khan being next to Punk while Punk is just eviscerating these faces, and thus
Homegrown
I would
talent.
and thus I would argue the company,
Yeah,
like, that's not a good look when the guy in charge is right next to them, which just by optics sake seems to give off the vibe that he is okay with this because Punk is the draw he is. Punk can just sort of have free reign, which we know is never good. So it's very icky, man. I don't like it at all. And who knows when we're going to get these guys back. Obviously, I would think the Elite are coming back and will be a presence, but I don't know what the future is for Punk in AEW, which if we
yeah,
said this a year ago would have just been bananas, man. I would argue he had such a great run, and it just sucks that that might be over. All speculation. That might
yeah.
be
Of
over
course.
due to bravado and machismo and a lack of effective communication between grown men.
Yeah, and I think Kenny is probably going to be the one that comes back first. Seems like he
Yeah,
was
that
playing
makes sense.
peacekeeper the most, and
Right. Trying to get the dog, right? Trying to
trying to
save the
get the
dog from all
dog,
this.
trying to pull Ace off of one of the Jacksons. Like he wasn't an aggressor in that situation. He was trying to mediate, even if he was in there yelling. If he was in there
Right.
partaking in the yelling and the screaming, like whatever, it was yelling and screaming. But if he was just in there as peacekeeper, I mean, he needs to be able to come back.
Right.
Um,
And it's complicated because the Bucks and Kenny are EVPs, which is a whole nother layer to this and a whole nother. I mean, in the sports world, Brad, power dynamics were front and center this week with Celtics head coach Ime Udoka, maybe
yeah,
former head coach at this point. Power dynamics when you have Kenny
yeah.
and the Bucks being EVPs and then brawling with Punk, that's rough. So if they come back, Brad, are they still EVPs? Can that happen?
I don't think so. I think you can't have them be EVPs, depending on what the
Rough.
investigation reveals. But
Right.
if they
Right.
went in there to yell, I guess whatever. Like if that's it. If Punk started taking swings unprovoked, if Ace threw a chair unprovoked, then I don't. That's complicated. I don't think your EVPs can go and sure. Should they have done it right then and there? Probably not. They probably should have waited. They probably should have cooled off all of that stuff. Um, the end. I think if you would have let it go, it probably wouldn't have gotten to that point, but there was just a bunch of testosterone and beat up wrestlers, and that's all it is. And yeah, and everybody's like, well, they shouldn't have got in there when he was on one like that. It's like, okay, he didn't need to take swings at
No.
people. A chair didn't need to be yeeted across a room at somebody's face.
Right. And if Punk says, if people have a problem with me, they can effing see me in my locker room.
And they
Well,
did.
you kind of,
It was an invitation. Yeah.
you kind of gave them the match, you gave them the
Yeah.
kerosene
You
to
can't
just, there you go.
be surprised by that. You can't just be
Yeah,
like,
no,
hey,
that's
come
rough.
on in if you got a problem. All right, we're here. Hey, get out of here. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
So
it's so
yeah.
complex. I will say, to wrap it up though, I think the past couple weeks for AEW, I think they put on some really good shows. And
Excellent.
I would imagine that if you were fantasy booking, if you or were talent in the locker room right now, you talk about lighting a fire, figuratively behind
Yeah.
someone. Like, this is a chance for a lot of the roster to step up. And the Bucks, Kenny and Punk have prominent top spots in the company. Those spots are now open for other people to really seize the moment. So at least I think that's a positive, is hopefully we'll continue to get the extremely talented men and women of the AEW locker room step up and really use this as a moment to come together and just put on dope shows.
Yeah. Speaking of dope shows, WWE has been putting on some really good ones. I'm ready for your WWE question.
Yeah, Brad, you know I struggled with this. It's always so tough. How do I sort of whittle down the week in WWE to one simple question? So I bounced a few ideas around in my mind, but I thought about you and your interests and your passion. Thus, we must start with the mysterious White Rabbit vignettes, QR codes. I don't even whatever we want to call them. So,
Oh
Brad, we did
shit!
not see Bray Wyatt on
No, we
SmackDown.
didn't.
Much to the chagrin of many listeners and viewers of GI, we put out a poll on Twitter, and the majority of us thought we were going to get Bray appearing in some form or fashion on Friday night in Salt Lake City. We did not, but we got the tease that the White Rabbit will be appearing this Monday on Raw. The coordinates were sent out, QR code, you could play a game that led to these coordinates being revealed as your prize. Apparently, you probably saw this, Brad. There were flyers
Yes.
posted on cars
Mhm.
outside the arena with more White Rabbits propaganda, if you will. So my question here, this is pretty new. This whole White Rabbit gimmick debuted this past Monday on Raw. Brad, how hopeful or even how certain are you that this is in fact going to be Bray Wyatt? And if so, what do you want to see from this potentially new Bray Wyatt character? So give me the breakdown of your thoughts on the sort of tease, the introduction of this White Rabbit gimmick. And if it is Bray, what do you want to see? Title program, no title program, interrupt a match at Extreme Rules? What are you hoping for?
I mean, it's Bray. If it's not Bray, Tyler, this is a giant waste of time. If it's Karrion Kross, I swear to God.
We were worried.
I mean, I like Kross, but I like what he's doing right now. You don't need to change it. Like, leave him alone. The way they're presenting him is super strong. Karrion Kross from NXT, but looks more like Killer Kross. So I'm good with it. Like, I like it. I like the presentation so far. I like the sneak attacks on Drew and Drew being ready for it and beating the piss out of him with the leather strap. I like that we're getting a variety of actually extreme matches at Extreme Rules. The fight pit's back. Can't wait. A strap match. We have all this stuff going on. It's amazing. Bray coming back to Extreme Rules, the only place that makes sense for him to come back to. That being said, Extreme Rules isn't exactly the place where we have a lot of positive memories of Bray Wyatt, especially Fiend Bray Wyatt. I don't know what'll happen here, but it's got to be Bray. If it's anything else, it's a disappointment. It feels a bit time wasty, but Tyler, I love it. I love it so much. So I'm hoping that it's there. I'm going to leave it at that because I have more thoughts. Because I got scared as soon as you started talking about White Rabbit. I'm like, we're going to do this. You take my question shit again. Next week, I'm going first. And I'm going to take your stuff.
That is the risk we take with not revealing our questions to each other. Yeah, man, like you, on one hand, disappointed that we didn't see whoever the White Rabbit is on Friday. But on the other side of things, I think the fact that we didn't get a reveal leads me to believe that it is in fact Bray. I want
to interject there. Sorry to interrupt. The follow the White Rabbit is the point, right? Like, follow the White Rabbit. We're still following the White Rabbit. It was 923 was the clue. And what was the clue for 923? Raw next week. Coordinates to where Raw is. And I'm sure at Raw, it's going to be some shit about SmackDown. And then it'll be some crap about Raw. And then it'll be some crap about SmackDown. And then finally, it'll be at Extreme Rules.
Yeah,
I think is Extreme Rules next weekend or 2 weeks?
2 weeks, I believe.
So it's October,
definitely not next
first week of October, right? Okay,
yeah,
so
it's in Philadelphia too.
Yeah, it's in Philly. Maybe it's Paul Heyman.
I was gonna say, yeah, he is front and center on the advertising for it.
Maybe it's Tommy Dreamer. Maybe it's Sandman. Maybe they'll resurrect New Jack and he'll come in there and stab somebody. Who knows?
I got to give you credit because you put me on to the song. I was not familiar with the White Rabbit song somehow. So I knew I had to go to you, not only for your song knowledge, but man, you are such a super fan of Bray and his work.
Everything I have written down. Just every
and his thing. I mean, we got War Games coming back, Survivor Series. We got the Bloodline and Sammy. We can always
stoked are you for War Games?
They had this segment of the year. So stoked. To me, I don't want to take your time up for your question, but to me, it would seem that not only does this reinvigorate the audience and
Yeah.
reinvigorate Survivor Series, which is what we've been asking for years since
It's one of the
NXT
big
won,
four. Come
since
on.
NXT won Survivor Series. Since then, it's been unfortunately so forgettable,
Yeah.
in my opinion. But super stoked, Brad, and not only because we love the match itself, but I think the talent and the storylines really lend themselves to a War Games match. In my mind, this is not my original thought by any means, but in my mind, for War Games on the women's side, you have Damage Control, and if they could find another counterpart or two, they could be on one side versus Bianca and company. Then particularly on the men's side, and I want to ask you this, if I can take two questions, but I guess before you ask your one, to me, Survivor Series War Games men's side seems built for the bloodline. They have a five, Brad, and their five, including the honorary Uce, Sami Zayn, had one of my favorite segments of the year. I thought their opening to SmackDown was absolute money. I was starting to feel like the bloodline was getting a bit stale, and maybe I wouldn't hate Roman dropping the belt, but I loved what they did. I think Solo being added is so great. Sammy, the crowd's already rooting for Sammy. We know they're going to beat the piss out of him at some point in the coming months. And then it's money. I thought I was tired of the bloodline, but the new storyline insertions, the new tease, I'm all in, Brad. I'm holding up the one during SmackDown every
Absolutely.
week
Yeah, it's incredible.
So good.
That was segment of the year for me. The Sammy segment.
Really?
Oh, it's not even close. What even approaches that level of drama?
From a theater background, you must have really appreciated the performance.
Well, the acting was really great. But it wasn't. I mean, the acting was what it was. It didn't feel like acting, which is why I liked it. Like Roman going like, "Why are you wearing our shirt?" And then he tells Jay to rip it off, who does it so aggressively. Like, finally, this piece of shit's out of here, only to be inducted with an honorary Uce shirt. The look on Sammy's face, the look of betrayal and rejection felt so real. And the pop he got from the crowd when he flipped the shirt around, to have him have the shirt backwards and then turn it to reveal where you get to see him reacting and then everybody else gets to be in on it. How awesome was that? It was perfect. It was a perfect segment. It was Solo. I'm glad you're here, but you need to acknowledge me right now. I thought that was great. That was a great moment because
fantastic.
Jay and Jimmy took a lot of work, and they acknowledged him as tribal chief. And now it's the three of them, and they're like, "You better do this." And Solo's like, "Yeah, I acknowledge you." And then Sammy goes, wait a second. I have never done it. I just wanted to publicly do it. I acknowledge you," which I thought was great because he just does it in such a Sammy way.
Yes.
Oh, it was so good, man. Like it was so good. Yeah, I could spend hours on just that segment because I thought it was incredible. I thought there wasn't any wrestling in it. And it made me stop what I was doing. Normally during that stuff, I'm like on my phone, I'm doing whatever. And then when Roman said, like, "Why are you wearing our shirt?" I stopped what I was doing. I was like this, and I just went, "Huh?" and looked up. And it was like, "Oh, is this it? Is this the turn?"
Thought so.
And then it kept going. I was like, "Oh, I'm so uncomfortable. Poor Sammy. I feel so bad." And then he got the shirt, and I was like, this is what it's about.
Right. Has to lead to War Games.
Has to. The storytelling there has been so good. And I feel like Sammy's going to go get the win in the War Games match. And maybe it
really?
costs. Yeah, I feel like Sammy for the win, but it cost them, or Sammy cost them because Jay super kicks him. Yeah. Or Sammy goes in for the pin, but Jay's pissed because he wants to get the pin. And that sets up a feud between them that's been building for months now, it feels like. So I can't. Man, it's all so good. It's so good.
It is. Yeah, and then like I said, on the women's side with Damage Control, I love that Bianca now has a formidable challenger. To me, Bayley is the woman who's going to take the belt off Bianca. And as much as we love the EST, I think a Bayley reign would be great. I'm so hopeful for the women's tag division, Brad, as we've spoken about on and off air. So I just, man, it's a lot of good news coming out of WWE for sure.
Yeah, and at some point, Charlotte's going to come back, and that'll that'll have somebody else that's always kind of in contention, even though she even said she doesn't really need to have titles. She just wants to have good matches. They just kept putting it on her. So it'll be interesting to see how she evolves that character when she comes back, or if she evolves that character when she comes back. Could be fun.
Yeah.
Tyler, my question for you, of course, it's about the White Rabbit. So I wrote all this stuff down, and you already killed my moment. Tyler shocked me this week with the revelation that he had never heard White Rabbit by Jefferson Airplane. We have QR codes during segments. Kind of a fun way to engage the fans during segments that maybe aren't as otherwise as engaging. A lot of times the backstage moments seem kind of like throwaways, or time to set up that match later on. Maybe it's a tag match, whatever it might be. But it's a good way to have content spill into all other avenues too, because in other mediums, there are group chats, online discussions, text messages back and forth, social media threads, stuff literally everywhere. On top of that, when Dexter Lumis debuted, Dexter Lumis did not debut on the screen. He debuted by weird stuff happening in the background. There was the car accident. There was this like people running by in the background of a KO segment. You could see people looking at the wrecked car, all this stuff, the arrest in the background after AJ won that match and Dexter Lumis is taken away and you don't actually get to see any of it. It's just everybody sort of reacting to this arrest happening. We have all these little bits and pieces of things before finally getting a reveal of Dexter Lumis fully cutting through the mat, sticking his head out from underneath the ring, showing up at the Miz's house, all of these great things. My question is this: are these breadcrumb reveals sustainable, or do you think the novelty will wear off as it continues?
Great question. I could really see either happening, but I must choose a side. I do not think they will get stale, Brad. If they are done with the level of creativity and care that we've seen thus far, i.e. Dexter, i.e. White Rabbit, which hopefully the payoff is Bray, I don't think so. This is one of my favorite parts of pro wrestling is sometimes we get these calculated debuts, these builds that go on for weeks and weeks, and then sometimes we just get a reappearance or a debut at a pay-per-view. So I'm here for either. I could see a world where it gets stale for sure, but I think that this is a huge part of the new Triple H regime is bringing back these old faces, whether it be Dexter, Braun Strowman, possibly Bray, Damage Control. I don't think the breadcrumbs will get stale, at least not for my personal taste. This is one of my favorite parts of pro wrestling is expecting to see these newer familiar faces pop up again. How about you? Maybe that's just me though.
No, I'm absolutely with you. I love this stuff. This stuff is great because I've been more engaged in this than anything. I was going to liken it to Lost. When Lost was on TV, like an episode would air on Wednesdays. Thursday mornings, we would be at the school, or it was Tuesdays and then Wednesday mornings. I can't remember. It was one of the two. I would show up to my lunch meeting and there'd be 15 of us at lunch, all talking about what the hell happened on the last night's episode. Like all of us were engaged in it. Game of Thrones before the end there. People were like, yeah, what's Danny going to do? Do you think Danny's going to turn heel? What's happening here? We had all of these thoughts, all of these theories. We're doing that live with pro wrestling as a story continues. It's not new. It's just I feel less clued in and it's less obvious. The Save Us Y2J Jericho return was like did you break the code? And it's like everybody broke the code. 3 seconds into the code being a thing, we all broke the code. It was super obvious who it was going to be. But that initial countdown, the Millennium Clock, no effing idea. And it's still my favorite debut of all time as Freya cries in the background really loudly. Yeah, it's crazy how all this works. The fact that WWE is like, no, get out your phone, pay super close attention to these segments because there might be something popping up in the background. I now not only have to engage with like a top dollar party in the background happening.
Featuring Drew Gulak.
Drew Gulak, yeah. I now also have to pay attention to, like, is there a thing on the table back there? What's on their t-shirts? Did they reference a word? And we're hanging on every word through the entirety of a show. I was looking in the crowd because at 9:23, that 9:23 clue from Monday popped up again, where a guy holding a giant QR code walked through the audience at 9:23. So I was like, I don't know. And that was the hangman thing. The white rabbit and that hangman board spelled out demon first. Those were the first letters.
We didn't talk about that. Good call.
Yeah, before who killed the world, you did. And they went back to an old Michael Cole interview that seems to connect. It doesn't connect. It just vaguely resembles is really what it is. But you could probably find the same thing for Cross. You could probably find stuff for The Undertaker. So whatever. I'm not going to.
What if it ends up being The Undertaker? The Undertaker is back for one more match.
Then we're done with this podcast. I'll never do it again.
The
WWE portion will be cut off entirely.
Yeah, has to be Bray.
Yeah, it's got to be Bray. I don't think there's any chance that it is. But no, absolutely not sick of the breadcrumbs.
Well, I love your answer because it makes me think of two things. One, it's a reminder that these people we love watching every week are artists. They want creativity to make their own unique character. So let artists create. Let them create their art. And then two, like you said, Brad, about how this spills over into other entertainment, TV shows, etc. It's a good reminder that we don't need everything revealed immediately.
Yeah.
I think AEW's trend has been to give us the surprise debuts, which we saw an example of on Grand Slam, which was amazing.
We will be talking about that.
Oh, perfect. I'm happy. I'm happy about that. But however, with these WWE reveals, I like that, at least in the case of Bray, assuming it's Bray, we don't have to just have that instant gratification of the moment happening right now. We can build that patience so that the reveal, much like our favorite weekly episodic TV shows, the payoff is so nice. We've invested weeks and several episodes. It's nice to get the immediate surprise, but it's also a good reminder that yes, we can be patient and we can wait for that final payoff. We have it, and it's going to be worth it. Hopefully, as soon as Philadelphia, I would surmise.
Yeah, totally agree. I love that whoever's doing this is allowing some creativity to happen here, and I doubt it'll be a new talent. I doubt it'll be somebody that we don't know. Like, I'm trying to think of who would it be from NXT. It feels very much not Carmelo. So I can't think of anybody.
I don't even know what a Carmelo White Rabbit gimmick.
No, it doesn't make any sense. But it's Bray.
They know at this point. I'm not saying Bray would put out an Instagram post denying this is him, but I think at this point, clearly, especially after Friday Night, Brad, all of the online speculation is pointing to Bray. I know Bray is a very polarizing figure in the community. Some people like us are just huge fans and love his work. Others are a little more critical, particularly of his in-ring work. But at this point, everyone and their mother seems to believe it's Bray. And I think WWE has to know that if it is anyone other than Wyndham Rotunda, it's going to be a massive disappointment for a huge portion of the audience. There are too many smart people in that company to not pay this off. I would argue.
What if it's the other Rotunda? What if it's Bo Dallas?
What if it's Bo?
Yeah.
Formerly of the B team?
Yeah.
I like Bo, but no thank you on this one. As long as he brings Bray with him. If it's just Bo by himself, I don't think I would like that.
Maybe Bo shows up dressed like Alice.
We believe. Yes, we
I guess I think allowing that creativity to kind of inject some enthusiasm and inject some intrigue into the day-to-day. I mean, it's so refreshing, man. Like I really enjoy watching it. It feels like they have some ideas that are really beginning to blossom here. Like a rose. It's time once again for a rose from Tyler.
And now for a rose from GI's most eligible bachelor.
You sly dog. That was one of your best transitions to date. I can even put the time in our show notes here for post-production. 34-minute mark of rose. Beautiful. Yeah, Brad, this might be the last rose for a little while. We saw the epic part 2 season finale for The Bachelorette. And I sent you some clips already, so we'll go ahead and break it down. I put this in my separate doc.
I'm excited.
Man, some things, so very newsworthy week for The Bachelorette. So we learned that Gabby and Eric are together. So Eric did in fact propose, and of course Gabby said yes, and they are together. They've had some struggles in their relationship so far, not unlike anyone, right? But they're happy and they're an item. However, as I correctly predicted, my friend, Rachel gave Tino the boot. However, and I had a feeling this was going to happen, Tino did propose to Rachel. Rachel said yes. But then in the weeks following the show, they also experienced some trouble in their relationship. And we actually got to see, this is pretty unprecedented. We got to see footage of Rachel and Tino having a conversation after Tino was unfaithful to Rachel. As the story goes, he ended up kissing a woman because he thought Rachel and him were taking a break from their relationship. She said, no, dude, like we never talked about us being off. We were just having a difficult period. So there was a lot of he said, she said. It made, on one hand, on a human level, it was really sad to watch. On the other side of things, Brad, it was great television. It was just, I left this episode with even more respect and admiration for Rachel, because I told you, my man, Tino has been a heel for so long. This is not a surprise to anyone that Tino apparently turned out to be a bit of a scumbag. Bachelor Nation knew this, and we got the reward of Tino being essentially dumped on last week's season finale. And then finally, well, two final notes. I sent you this clip, Brad. Avon reappeared in a very, and this is the connection back to truly Gimmick Infringement, in a very pro wrestling like angle. Tino and Rachel were speaking, actually this time on stage during the season finale itself. This is after they showed the clip of them speaking at a random home in LA about his infidelity. They were actually back together on stage. Tino looking still kind of disheveled and with a Jonas-like haircut. And again, Rachel said, no, we're not together. They were just reflecting on their breakup. The clip I sent you, Brad, Jesse Palmer says, Rachel, I have some news for you. Someone has demanded, this is the word he used, Brad. Someone has demanded that they speak with you tonight.
Wow.
Rachel's intrigued. And then the Avon reveal. Brad, was that not a Road Warrior level pop for Avon, our guy?
Yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah, it was pretty good.
It was amazing. And Avon and Rachel then left the show, presumably maybe to rekindle their love. And finally, we learned that Zach is the new Bachelor. So that has caused some controversy and mass disappointment within the community, Brad. Zach, although he made it to final 3 for Rachel, doesn't seem to spark the interest of the fan base. So it's a really curious pick. We got to see some early signs of what life will be like with him as the Bachelor. Folks aren't very excited. I know I'm not, but I will be tuning in, and I'm sure we will have future Rose reports, future Rose with me. I can't wait for the future season, even if it's with the Bachelor, who I have some questions about. But man, we saw Avon. Rachel left happy. Gabby and Eric are a thing. So we had lots of wins, and I'm just so happy we made it through another season of The Bachelorette, man. It was a blast.
I'm going to miss it for the time being, even though I know this nightmare never ends completely with all of this Bachelorette talk. But let me tell you something. So I sent you a text. I sent you a GIF of Ross Geller from Friends. You'll understand it's Tino. Okay. It's yes. Ross over and over in various clips saying we were on a break. If
never seen Friends.
Do you know who he's saying that about?
Jennifer Aniston?
Yeah. What's her character's name? Do you know?
Rachel.
Yes, it is.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing tie-in.
Yeah,
Brought
life-
your A game today.
Life imitating art right there.
Oh my gosh, that's very accurate.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny because you're like, well, Rachel was upset because her boyfriend, fiance thought they were on a break. I'm like, oh
Effective
my God.
communication
They
at
just
the heart of all successful relationships,
all
professional
they
and personal.
yeah, they just became characters and friends.
This guy seems much
Amazing.
more. You said Ross is this guy's name?
Yeah,
Okay. Ross seems like much more of a babyface than Tino, though.
absolutely not.
No,
But
he's a heel as well.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, incredibly
That's
selfish,
disappointing. Wow.
incredibly selfish guy. Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, I like the parallel there. When you saw it, I was like, oh my God, it's just the plot of that love story, that storyline in Friends. It's
So
just
similar.
it's just Ross and Rachel instead of Tino and Rachel. Amazing.
Yeah.
Tyler, hit me with your question for
Yeah,
AEW.
So excited. It is time to talk All Elite Wrestling. And I have quite the intro for you on this one, Brad. So I want to read you a snippet of a Fightful Select report that hit our inboxes earlier this week. Here we go. As reported on Fightful Select last month, several AEW talent have been contacted by WWE or those working with WWE about potential returns to the company. At the time, Fightful had heard that a former WWE talent had been contacted by WWE Talent Relations, referred the contact to their attorney, and informed AEW management of the contact. Very juicy. AEW sources confirm this, and higher-ups have spoken of it numerous times. However, that's far from the only talent that was contacted. So the report from Fightful goes on to mention 4 specific talents that this occurred with: Malachi Black, FTR, and Swerve Strickland. So my question for you, Brad, we know that Tony Khan is not a fan of this. He's been quoted as saying he's not going to put up with this insert word.
Yeah.
What are your initial thoughts after reading this report? Specifically, does that change your positive feelings toward Triple H's regime? And if you're Tony Khan, how do you go about the situation moving forward as WWE picks up more steam and presumably may continue trying to reach out to former talent to bring them back in the fold?
I don't know. I don't. Do they do it to Impact? Do they do it to MLW? Do they look at other people that are in TV that have experience, that have a lot of reps? Do they do it with New Japan? I don't know. My guess is they probably do all the time. We only care because it's AEW and they're seen as a rival brand. They're not really a rival. They're like the CFL to the NFL. Like, nobody gives a shit about the Canadian Football League in America. So I don't know that it's a fair comparison. AEW is not a small company. It is a huge company now, but it's still being run as a small company. And that leaves them open. They're independent contractors, but Tony's totally willing to let them wrestle at different dates upon approval, to do TV shows, to film things, to do all this stuff as long as it's part of their contract. Some people are signed there long term and have AEW All Elite graphics. Others are like Sky Blue, who is signed to an AEW deal but isn't All Elite. We have people that are in the ROH brand, even though ROH doesn't even exist at this point. It's all sloppy and confusing. I don't care if Triple H reaches out. They might care. The problem is there's no players union. There's no anything protecting this stuff from happening. So there can be contract tampering. There's nothing there to protect it. There's no governing body or anything. The WWE is not a monopoly. They try to be because they're an entertainment company. There's nothing there protecting AEW or Impact or any place else from anything that they do. I hate that part. What I really don't like about Triple H is he seems to be doing the Vince in the 80s thing, which is I'm going to go head to head with my talent or with my competitors, try to out talent them, and eventually run them into the ground and run them out of the business. And it's like, that's a terrible thing for the industry. Competition is healthy. He knows damn well that the WWF was its absolute best when they had Nitro going head to head. Like that should be that's a no-brainer.
It's a
you,
fact.
you have competition, step up your game is what you should be doing instead of going, you have competition, try to destroy it. That's a Vince McMahon thing. Vince was not a talent at that time. He was running it as a businessman. I understand that's a business. It's a publicly traded company with 50 years of lineage behind it, with video libraries coming out the ass. You have video games, you have toys, merch everywhere, tons of crossover. ESPN probably purchased awards so that they can get him into the ESPYs. What's the best WWE moment of the year rather than what's the best professional wrestling moment of the year? Even though there's probably better moments in professional wrestling than there are in the WWE, outside of Sasha and Bianca, both main eventing and having a great title match, but absolutely deserved that award. I don't know that there's anything that stands up as something that stands up as better than something AEW has put out, or at least as good. There's certainly things that are as good. Like, do you think Gunther and Sheamus are winning that moment of the year? Because that was the best thing WWE's put out in years, match wise.
That show just ruled. Completely.
That show was incredible,
particularly that
so
match.
good.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite matches of the year so far.
And
so
you're not alone.
Yeah, that whole match, that whole event was great, but we also had a lot of great things happen, like the first Acclaimed versus Swerve in Our Glory match, the one at the pay-per-view.
Yeah, that was
like that.
That's amazing.
We had two black tag teams going up against each other while an entire arena full of people were chanting "Oh, scissor me, daddy!" Like,
I love
put that on
pro
ESPN.
wrestling.
Yes. It's amazing, right? So yes. I don't love that they're reaching out while people are under contract, but I mean, I don't know why you would do it. Tony, Tony's not going to just be like, all right, go ahead and go work there. So he's going to keep people as long as he can, which is interesting for the Malachi Black thing. My guess is that the non-compete is years, if not year long from Tony. If you're going to release somebody that you signed for 5 years, you almost didn't get a full year out of them, and then they asked to go somewhere. You're not letting them wrestle anywhere for a very long time.
Yeah, I would not blame Tony at all.
I wouldn't, absolutely not.
I'd be like, number one, we want Malachi to be well, but
right
from a competitive business, yeah. And he would be a major player in WWE under this new regime.
If it were me, I'd be like, yeah, we can let you go, but you can't wrestle to them for the entire length of your contract. You signed a 5-year deal. Yeah. You're ours for 5 years. If you want to wrestle, you're welcome to come back, but you're not going back there for 5 years.
Right. And Malachi's not young in wrestling terms, right? No. I think we spoke recently. He's 34, 35.
Yeah. And he's got a ton of time left, I think. And he's
for sure.
Physically healthy and all that stuff. I'm sure part of it is Triple H is running the show now. I'm sure part of it is his wife is there. I know that all of that, we have no idea. Malachi will tell us what's going on when he wants to tell us, if he wants to tell us. Yeah. And that's none of our business. And I just want to see him on our screen. I don't really care what that means. WWE, AEW, I just want to see him. And I want them to let him be. I thought House of Black ruled, and I thought what they were doing with him was great, even though it absolutely petered out. We don't know if the professional obligations he talked about were WWE related or AEW related. I really don't know.
Yeah, it was mysterious.
It definitely seems like he lost a ton of momentum when Cody left. It seems like a lot of stuff fell apart when Cody left. And I don't know if that was just timing and because the roster got bigger, but Cody seemed to make the best decision for Cody, and it to the detriment in a lot of ways to everybody else.
Yeah, and the TNT belt since Cody left. I don't mean to just be a Cody stan every episode, but yeah, it's just what it was. Well, and I would argue even Miro had the best run. We've spoken about this before.
Agreed.
But even when Cody was champ, the TNT belt just really mattered. And now, unfortunately, I think
Cody,
still fighting
Cody and Brody.
Brody. Have to mention Brody. Thank you. Yes.
Sammy beating Miro. Actually, I was like, oh, this is cool. This is a good moment.
We were all behind Sammy.
And then
do you remember those days?
And it was kind of okay after that. And then when you started doing the stuff with, it was really Scorpio's run that killed it.
Which sucks to say that.
I know, it really sucks because I liked him, but that whole Dan Lambert, Ethan Page, Scorpio Sky stuff, it was just such an unbelievable disaster of a
Avoided it.
decision.
Yeah.
All of that stuff was bad. You have two
It
great
was.
talkers with Dan Lambert. This is what I loved about it. That's what I loved about
I
it.
know you popped for it. Yeah.
Scorpio Sky snapping, the screen going black.
So good.
But when he was talking, it was great. I actually don't mind Dan Lambert. I don't like him as a human being, but like he's really good at his job of getting you to hate his guts.
Mhm.
He's probably like
no
a
doubt.
super nice guy in person. I just disagree with like all of his beliefs, like all of them.
Right.
But put him with somebody that we know isn't gonna like. Why isn't Marina Shafir with Dan Lambert?
Right.
That's a no brainer. She's
and-
MMA. She doesn't
yes.
speak. She's a monster. It's perfect.
Yeah, and be the heel manager that we all love to boo, but also we don't need the attitude era,
Sexism.
shot. Yeah, the sexism, like we don't need that way to get
Yeah.
heat. Just use your brilliance and your creativity, but not resorting to just
Yeah.
ridiculous sexist comments that we left that decades ago, my man.
Yeah, and I think going back to it, I guess I don't really have a problem with it because there's nothing protecting it. So if there was something protecting it, I would be really pissed off about it. But there's nothing there protecting anybody from talking to anybody else.
And I forgot, this is my last words on this.
Unless there's language in the contracts that we don't know about, Tyler.
Which could be possible. We don't have our eyes to that. We're not privy to the specific jargon. But I forgot to mention this during my opening of this question, which I now greatly regret. I was going to compare it, and I hope this pops you. But if it doesn't, don't fake it. I was thinking about, like, what does this look like in other fields? So let's say, hypothetical, Marana Mountain View High School reaches out, their principal, whoever their principal. Oh, I think we know who it is now. Great lady.
Yes.
Let's say she reaches out to you on the side, Brad, and she is trying to get you to convert from being a Marana Tiger to being a Mountain View Mountain Lion. But she did it without the knowledge or blessing of your principal. Shout out to Ms. Kaufman. I don't think folks would be okay with that if they tried to just recruit you there using these nefarious tactics, if you will. I'm kind of disappointed in Triple H. Like you said, I think all of your points were wise, and we know, business can be cutthroat. I just was like, man, like,
it's not a good look.
Hunter, we gotta do it like that when you're the top dog, really?
Well, and who knows who reached out? Could have been, for all I know, Laurinaitis did it before getting suspended.
That's true. We don't know for sure. I would think Triple H was aware. That's what I would surmise. But you're right. He necessarily didn't just slide into Swerve.
Could have been Sean. Could have been Stephanie.
Absolutely. It could have been. You're right.
Maybe it was Shane going like, "Hey, if you go, can you bring me with?"
Shane.
Yeah.
For possible Royal Rumble entrant. At least.
Oh my God. I love so much that his dad was like, "You fucked up, kid. You're not allowed back. You're fired." Like, amazing. Like, amazing that Shane gets just like, he's not getting that happy birthday tweet, and he's also going to get buried by his dad for screwing up the Royal Rumble.
You said it well. I have nothing to add to that.
All right. Well, I don't have a transition either. It's time for the state of 19.
Late breaking news from the world of 19 media.
Small Town USA is back. Join Jess and Carmen for their new expedition, traversing through the town that swallows men whole. Listen to their latest episode as they make their way through Vermont.
The Orlando Magic are preparing for a big season full of hope. On the latest episode of Close Up Magic, superfans Steven and Malik discuss the news and notes surrounding the franchise. Hear their takes on Coach Jamal Mosley, their new jerseys, and Mo Bamba's new workout plan.
And there are new media passes.
Yes, shout out to the guys.
Yeah.
Big look.
Join Mo, good friend of GI and 19 co-founder, for the latest edition of Hidden Gems Golf. Tap in and hear his thoughts on the world's top golfers as they prepare for the President's Cup.
Speaking of people we admire, Jabari Davis, formerly of 19 Media and now producer for iHeartMedia, is doing great work behind the scenes for the show Miles and Jack Got Mad Boosties, an NBA podcast. You can check him out at Jabari Davis NBA on Twitter.
Our guy Des Powell dropped a new episode of Hip to the Games. Check it out and hear his original concept, This Week in Basketball and Hip Hop History.
We love Des. The fellows of the Baseline NBA podcast blessed our inboxes this week. Shout out to Warren Shaw and company. Check out their latest episode as they break down the players who are heading into the new season with redemption on their minds, specifically James Harden, John Wall, Bradley Beal, and Ben Simmons. Warren and Cal have great chemistry, Brad, and we salute those fellas always.
Love call. Also, shout out to Warren and to Mo, both doing a ton of work behind the scenes, making 19 Media hum. Finally, shout out to Mike Steff, former GI guest and fellow podcaster. Check out his show, The Salty Thoughts of Donnie Ooh, for detailed, passionate commentary on the latest news in sports, professional wrestling, New York politics. You can find him at Mike Steffens _ on Twitter. And I can't wait, Tyler, because we had our group chat and he said some things in there that got him, it seemed a little spicy. So I'm looking forward to catching some of his thoughts.
Always. Yeah. And I think we have a standing invitation to go on the Salty Thoughts podcast. I know he wants to discuss some Mets and Yankees takes with me. He's a big Mets fan. I am not. And I think him and you may have plans as well to chop it up about some topics. So yeah, great guy, great supporter. And please support everyone we mentioned. They're doing just amazing work and are dear friends of ours. And we really appreciate their support.
Yeah. And Tyler, it's time for my question for AEW. We got Saraya Jericho as ROH champion. The Great Muda with Sting and the Green Mist. And almost killing Julia Hart. Moxley and Danielson. Ricky over Hobbs. Rochambeau from Hades. And that was
you watched it, right?
Woo!
How good was that?
Plant.
Deceptively strong.
Yes, incredible. The Acclaimed are champs. Action Bronson was on the mic and in the ring. A ton of hip-hop crossover this week. This week was loaded. 4 hours of AEW television. It feels like we got a pay-per-view, but during the week. My question, though, is about Wheeler Yuta. That's right. It's about Wheeler Yuta. You know this, and you probably even forgot about this. He went toe-to-toe with MJF on the mic and didn't die, which is about as much as you could ask for. Because it wasn't great. It wasn't great, but we were asking Yuta to be MJF. Absolute no-win scenario for Yuta, but I thought he did really well in that spot. So I'm assuming that he was interrupted because he's part of the Blackpool Combat Club. But then I was listening to Busted Open this week, and Bully brought up a good point, and I'm going to bring it up to you and see what you think, because I loved this so much. Would it have been better for the crowd and potentially a future match with another person? I don't want to spoil it. If Yuta didn't get up to defend Tony when Tony gets shoved down by MJF, and instead Taz took off his headset and got into MJF's face in New York, where he would have been just as big of a baby face. Do you think that would have been better booking?
I completely missed that headline from the week. You know I'm a huge Taz guy, so of course my answer is going to be yes. That would have led to a massive pop.
Oh my God, and thunderous.
Again, like in terms of paying it off, of course I don't think this leads to an MJF. I don't think it leads to any Taz physicality in the ring.
No, but Hook,
pretty clear.
I think Hook is pretty the obvious. He gets in Taz's face. Maybe he shoves Taz and Hook's music plays. Maybe MJF is Hook's first loss with the Dynamite Diamond Ring Punch. Like, I thought that's what I was thinking. Like,
okay. I don't hate it. I don't. Yes.
And it doesn't need a payoff. That moment would have been good enough. MJF just going, all right, I don't want none of Taz, right? Like, just backing off.
Or even him saying, I don't want none of Hook. I think that would be amazing as well.
So I guess having that with no payoff, do you think we're going to have a payoff with MJF and Yuta? Because I don't.
Oh, I do. I think so clearly that hasn't been announced for this week's Dynamite. but I think that is for sure MJF's next match. I think that's going to be, it definitely wouldn't be on Rampage, I don't believe. I think if that's not happening this week on Dynamite, it would for sure be the next. I think MJF clearly would win that match. Yuta would look great in the process.
Hope so.
And I actually do think there's going to be a payoff for that. I totally believe that we get MJF in the ring before a massive show, before Full Gear, before Winter is Coming, obviously, which I think is like all the way in December.
Yeah.
I think for sure we're getting MJF in the ring sooner than later. I know his aura is that sort of less is more. We don't see him in the ring that often, and he's still over. But I think you need to pay off that match, and I think it's an easy dub for MJF over Yuta. But like you said, on the mic, MJF is going toe to toe with the Michael Jordan of this. Like, and he stood pat. He didn't beat MJ one-on-one, but he stood pat with MJF, and I think that was a big win for Yuta. But yes, Taz interrupting, potentially Hook making an appearance. Of course, I'm going to put that as my ideal fantasy booking. I did not think of that at all. I did not hear the Busted Open interview or episode, but that absolutely rules.
Yeah, because Taz was 5 feet away and he's friends with Tony, so I thought that would have been amazing.
Right. Yes.
Because we've already had that happen. Tony got pushed by QT, his son got beat up by QT, and Paul White got involved,
which led to an all-out match, a pay-per-view match, believe it or not.
Yes, on the buy-in, right? Oh no, it was during the main card.
Yeah, that was
the palate cleanser.
That was the match before Kenny versus Christian.
And I think it was brilliantly put in that card because it's like we all know how this is going to go. It's like it's a whatever thing, but it's entertaining. It's fun. You get to see the Big Show punch a dude we all hate. And that's kind of it because QT is such a great heel.
QT is very serviceable.
He's amazing. So I guess I don't think we're getting the payoff with Yuta. I don't think we're getting it at all. No, of course not. Yuta's going to challenge him to a match, and he's going to go, well, my buddy's from the firm, and then Yuta's going to get killed by Morrissey.
Okay, that's very likely. I think
that's that's such an MJF move. Not actually wrestle.
That's true. I think that to me that gives Rampage vibes. Not to be not to
set it up on Dynamite this week on a Rampage, and then
I really enjoyed the Rampage edition of Grand Slam, though. I know there was a lot to fill, and
because it was Grand Slam.
Because it was Grand Slam, yeah. But Phoenix versus Jungle Boy ruled.
Incredible.
Did you see the Hangman avoiding elimination? His feet were so
incredible,
so good.
No way he thought he was getting that low on that. That was that was a real struggle to get back up there.
Yes,
I love that. I just I'm with you. I've enjoyed Rampage. I'm fine with Morrissey versus Yuta on Rampage.
Me too.
I think they set it up on Dynamite because MJF's going to come out there and go like, I'm not going to wrestle you. You haven't done anything. You're so far beneath me. I only go after the big fish. And you used to be ROH pure champion. You're not anymore. I'm not going to waste my time with somebody like you. Wow. I could see him doing stuff like that because he already started kind of saying that to Yuta.
And maybe this goes against my point I made.
Maybe Ethan Page. Ethan Page would be a great match with him.
And since MJF does have that chip, maybe he actually does do the opposite of what I'm saying, and maybe he doesn't have to wrestle on TV before he's saying, hey, I don't even need to win any matches. I have this chip, I cash it in, and then I have the match I want. Why should I risk injury, or why should I give these plebeians my time? I just need to cash this in when I'm ready, and I get my title.
You know what I would love? Him saying, I'm not going to do anything, but then him like showing up on Dark Elevation to wrestle like, I don't know, Ryan Nemeth. Just randomly wrestling some random guy on there. Maybe he kills Serpentico in 3 seconds.
And then just always got to be Serpentico, right?
Yeah,
unfortunately, it's the Snake Man.
Serpentico or Baron Black.
Don't do that to Baron. Baron does not deserve that.
I know, but maybe there's somebody on there that he can
Brock Anderson.
Is he even still with the company?
I
never see Arn anymore. I never see Brock anymore.
Lee Johnson, I don't know where he is.
Yeah, Brock did the thing on an indie show where it was like the Legacy team, kind of it was him and Pillman Jr. against I can't remember who it was, some legends. Maybe it was I don't know. It might have been Express out there. I think Ricky Morton was out there against Arn and Brian's kids.
Yeah.
because they're 75 still wrestling. But
Let me ask you. I know we're trying to fit a lot in. Obviously, Jade retained, and Trina sided
there's
with
so much
Jade,
stuff.
which is
Bess. There's so
interesting.
much stuff.
I don't even know that we mentioned Mox is now a 3-time champion.
No,
So it's going to be presumably Mox versus Hangman first for a big match, which I'm excited for. But then I think the money is in Mox versus MJF, likely at Full Gear. What did you think of? So obviously we had Britt's nose being broken on a really gnarly spot. Athena just so cool, her
unbelievably
carrying 2
strong.
women, but then unfortunately falling on Britt. What do you make of? I ask you this because I know you're a big fan. Jamie Hayter still being a part of DMD.
Hate it so
It
much.
would seem that
God, I hate it so much.
It would seem that we are not getting that turn for a while now.
No, and it's stupid. Like, what are you waiting for? All it said to me is they don't know what to do with Jamie Hayter because they don't know what Jamie Hayter is without Britt Baker right now. That was my first thought.
She has so much momentum though.
She's a ton of momentum, but what's her character?
Blackpool Combat Club inaugural women's
Done.
member.
It's exactly what I thought, man.
Yeah.
But Saraya also fits that.
Yeah. And Saraya's back. Like it's a big deal.
That's a huge deal, dude. Like edge level of we didn't think we'd ever see you again because it was the same injury. So I think it's great. I had to go back when she first changed her name. I want to say it was like 4 or 5 months ago, probably now, to watch some matches because I did not watch any of that era.
Sure.
So,
yeah, that was Total Divas title.
Yeah. So
she was awesome.
And, yeah, she's great. She's a really good worker. So, and crazy young for how long she's been doing it because she started when she was like 18.
Right.
So, yeah, she's been, or 16, I think is what it was. I know Becky did, but Paige broke in earlier, just during a not great era for women in wrestling, but still became a superstar, like a mega
huge
star.
following online. Yeah, between Twitch and her other platforms. I mean, she's got millions.
She had that
of followers.
documentary done about her and all of that stuff. So, pretty incredible.
If we're not getting Sasha and Naomi in AEW, it would seem, although I don't think we've mentioned this on air, they're just living their best lives, which makes me arguably even more happy than seeing them in weekly tag matches, Brad. I just love that it's just total black girl magic in Chicago at New York Fashion Week. Like I'm just comfortable with seeing them literally glow and just bask in their their excursions. Not to take small towns gimmick, but I'm just happy to see them doing that. But I'm getting the sense that WWE ultimately is where they'll be back at.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to get Sasha and or Naomi, I think getting Saraya is a pretty good plan B.
Yeah, and that interview with Ariel Helwani that Triple H did when they were in London, he talked about just they're welcome back if they want to come back. Well, cool. specifically Sasha. It was like Sasha's got to want to be here, and right now I think she's trying to figure out what she wants to do, and she wants to do all these other things, and she'll be great at them, but you got to come back. And then he immediately started talking directly into the camera to address The Rock, which I thought was amazing. When he was asked about The Rock coming back, and he just stared right into the camera.
I feel like they've got it, again, total speculation, as is I guess the theme of this episode. It has to happen at this point. I would be shocked if Rock hasn't actually agreed behind the scenes to do this. It just seems it seems written in the stars, again, to try to avoid a terrible cliche. This match has to happen. I'm just wondering how we go if it's Rock versus Roman at Mania, and we all agree it doesn't need the title. I just have a hard time believing that Roman would drop the title before WrestleMania. I think it's going to be dropped to Cody. Cody wins Rumble. Cody gets the match. That is just WrestleMania main event night 2 stuff. I don't know exactly where The Rock fits in, unless Roman drops the belts on night 1 and then somehow Rock versus Roman is night 2. I don't know, but yeah, Rock versus Roman has to happen. Great call referencing the Triple H Ariel interview.
Yeah, man, I am I'm so overloaded with wrestling information right now. I'm trying to make sense of all of it because there's just been so much going on in the ring, outside of the ring, contract wise, teases. And I'm trying to right now I'm putting together the title after you said something for this episode because I was like, oh, this will work.
We thought last year, I'm sorry to cut you off. We thought, like, imagine the conversations you and I were having last year, Brad, as we were planning to start Gimmick Infringement. I think it was
Yeah.
right on the heels of CM Punk returning to AEW, WWE being pretty stagnant, but us still loving, the business.
Sure.
If you compare that when we thought, man, things are like pretty wild right now, and what a time it is. Fast forward a year. I mean, who could have predicted all that's happening? And somehow we try to talk about it every weekend in 90 minutes or less.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild. Speaking of wild, I'm ready, Tyler. I know you haven't told me anything about this. I don't know what's coming. All I know is that it's Venom. I am ready. I am ready for your promo of the week.
And now, the promo of the week.
Brad, I will confess that I'm going to try to make this as short and sweet as possible. I probably should have brought more props. I did not. I just brought sheer venom. I was reflecting on my love of The Bachelor and Bachelorette this week as season 19 comes to a close. I was also reflecting on my application that was submitted months ago for the show that production has obviously done nothing with. And here's my issue. I'm going to talk to the Bachelor and Bachelorette production staff right here directly. It's become apparent to me that as much as I love the series, it is not about who is trying to find love or who wants to be there for the right reasons. It's clear, Brad, I've done some research. It's clear that they just want people who post every day, who have TikToks, who have thousands upon thousands of followers. Brad, that is not me. On Instagram, I think I have about a smooth 8 photos right now, 4 of which are current day me. Others are nostalgia and other random nature photos.
Yeah.
I think I have a crisp, maybe 120 followers right now. So I don't believe I'm going to make the cut for the show. It also has frankly pissed me off that if you look at the final 2 men on the show, who I've hipped you to, we have Eric, who dressed in blackface for a Jimi Hendrix appreciation photo for his high school yearbook. And we have Tino, who is an egomaniacal, absolute jerk. So Brad, if they don't want me, that's okay. If they don't want someone who is genuine, who's trying to become a better man every single day, who is trying to leave an impact on his community, who never dressed in blackface, who hopefully is not an egomaniacal prick. If I don't meet that criteria, it's okay. I'm just never gonna make the show. But if they want a taste of someone who's real, who is a fan of the show, who writes articles about the show, they have my number, they have my email address. I will be waiting. But in the meantime, if they want to choose these people with checkered past, with racist paraphernalia in their past, they can have them. But I will be waiting. With my glass that you and Jess were so kind to give me, by the way, which I know I shared episodes and episodes ago. I'm just pissed off. I love this show, but it's become clear to me that I stand exactly a 0% chance at actually going on the show. So thank you to those in my life who have supported my candidacy, but I think this may be my official withdrawing of my candidacy to the show. They don't want me, and perhaps that's okay.
Okay, that popped me several times. Amazing. Thank you for that. I'm so sorry. They're missing out. They don't know what they're missing. Tyler, I am so glad you've never gone anywhere in blackface. That's proud of you.
That is something I've made my fair share of mistakes in my life. I can assure you that is certainly not one that is has happened nor will ever happen. Unlike the guy who made it to the very finals, the guy who's supposed to be the dude we're rooting for because he and Gabby made it. Unlike Eric, I am not that guy. So thank you, my friend.
Yeah, I can't believe Eric made it all the way to the end.
He's the guy we're supposed to root for. This guy, the Jimi Hendrix guy.
And a guy that flavorless, cheap pizzas are named after.
Yeah. Thank
Tino.
you. Yes.
Yeah.
These are the 2 guys who made it, Brad. And no one's pissed off about it except me.
I'm kind of pissed off, and I don't even know who these people are.
It's ridiculous.
Other than one of them looked like Eric last week. What did I say he looked like? I can't remember what he looked
Oh,
like.
Cash Wheeler.
Cash Wheeler, like
Diet Cash
yeah,
Wheeler. The
dial it, yeah,
mullet.
discount, yeah, Kroger Cash Wheeler.
I tried
Yeah.
to give Eric a chance. Seems like he really cares about his family, but inevitably, I made the Morgan Whalen joke weeks
Mhm.
and weeks ago before we
Yeah.
knew any of this, and it turns out okay, he and Morgan probably share some similar philosophies.
That's unfortunate.
Absolutely.
All right, Tyler, what are you looking forward to this week?
Oh man, well you kind of laid it out for me. Of course, in the wrestling world, can't wait, especially in AEW, off of the heels of Grand Slam. Again, you mentioned Saraya, you mentioned the Acclaimed being
Yeah.
champs, Keith and Swerve. I mean, there's just storylines galore that I'm really stoked for. Along with that, I shared with you previously, Atlanta season 4 is in full gear. It's been so good so far. And man, just hoping for a really great week at the shoot job. Obviously, hoping the same for you. Things are starting to continue to balance for me on my end in terms of work and school and family things. So I'm just hoping for a lot of joy, some laughter, and hopefully some really good wrestling. But that's it for me. And I'm also hoping that you open a can of whoop ass on that doorbell ringer. I didn't mention this earlier, but I thought we left the what is it? Doorbell ditch
Ding
doorbell.
dong ditch.
Ding
Ding
dong
dong
ditch.
ditch. Yeah.
Thank you. Suburbs across the world. I thought we left that behind in like 2004, man. So I'm hoping that you get into not a confrontation with this kid, but I hope you find out who the person is. And I hope they apologize to you and the fam because I saw the tweet you shared and I was just disappointed in humanity there. Who does that at 10:30 at night?
Yeah, I don't know,
That's
man.
what I'm looking forward to in no particular order.
I'm looking forward to figuring out who this kid is too. I'm thinking about showing it to all of my classes, just to investigate, so I could figure out which one of them is the one that put this kid up to it.
Brilliant.
Because it doesn't look like any of my current students. It might be. It's hard to tell with the floppy hair there. There's one kid in particular I thought it might be, but the shoes didn't look right, and the kid looked like it was the first time he had ever run in his life. So I think a baby giraffe.
And the hope is that I was being, of course, silly about the can of whoop ass, but the hope is
I'm
that
not.
I just want him to apologize and never do it again. That's it. That's what
I
I'm
don't want him
looking
ever
forward
to do it again. Yeah, I want him scared. That's why I sent it to the SRO. So I'm looking forward to maybe finally finding out if my car is totaled. Maybe getting some money back from the previous accident so we can pay off these medical bills and various other things. Yeah, nothing from anybody about anything. So, and Jess has been calling them like every other day, it seems like, and still unresolved. So I'm hoping that works out. And I'm looking forward to this week being over because that means I have 3 days, 2 half days, and then a fall break. And I can't wait. I need the rest, my guy. I need to sleep. I need to just not think about school for a couple of days because it is stressful out here, but it is also productive and really good.
Absolutely. And I always remind you of the difference you're making every day. I know that's very hallmarky, but I just, I think you and your colleagues are absolute heroes. And, I commend you today and always. Fall break is so close,
Appreciate
man.
that. Yeah.
I know you can taste it. It's this
little taste.
You're almost there. I'm stoked.
I love him on Dark. I miss him on commentary. Final thought here is I hope we get him back on commentary for the Dark stuff. I know he's not injured anymore, so he obviously he wrestled with Hook and Action Bronson. But I just loved him on there going, look at him, look at his shoes. What kind of shoes do you think those are? And it's just like just little asides, like, I don't know. He seems like a jerk. Real jerk. It's just all the short little bursts.
Yes, of course. Didn't he call out Aubrey Edwards as well? That's a glory. Would he say glory hound or glory?
Yeah, something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah, just random picking on.
Yeah, Aubrey. Totally. Yeah, totally uncalled for and unnecessary. Yeah. Maybe 2 of the best signings AEW that Tony made. I can't believe they were just sitting there because it's like so much of it isn't about their ability to work. So much of it is all the other stuff, and they have everything else. Matt Menard especially, but Menard and Parker together are so good. Mm-hmm. So good.
That's what we seem to hear from so many people in the business is everyone can work, right? Everyone has that ability when you make it to this level. but it's the character. What is your character? Do you connect to the audience? That's what sets you apart.
Yeah.
And those two guys clearly have figured that out.
Right. Yeah, Tyler, I don't really have anything else to add here other than I hope things get resolved, and I'm looking forward to enjoying more of this weather.
Yeah, it's beautiful. October is one of my favorite months as we approach it. Following Brad on Twitter, that is a must for you this week if you haven't already. He is at Winduster. I am at Tyler J. McDowell. We are at GIPod19. Don't forget about the fine individuals of 19 Media Group. You can catch their work at 19M Group. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will see you next week for another edition of Gimmick Infringement. Gimmick Infringement is a part of 19 Media Group. You can listen to us on Good Pods, our premier partners, and Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you find podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube via the 19 Media Group channel. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share.